Is this a romance or a deadly game where love is your only reset? Yes, it's time to talk about Silent Whispers and the direction its story may take. I'm Princess Farron, and we're about to lift the veil on the 7 most relevant hidden details so far in Silent Whispers. So let's travel through the deep space tunnel and fall down the rabbit hole. In the worldwide PV of Silent Whispers, we don't get too many on the nose clues about what the story will revolve around, but after a closer look, and with the most recent posts on social media, one thing becomes clear. The love story will not take place in the real world, but in a purgatory disguised as a series of compulsory games. If to some of you this sounds familiar, it's because you've probably watched Alice in Borderland. So, if you haven't watched it yet, be aware of the spoilers incoming. Alice in Borderland is a Japanese thriller series where several people, including the protagonists Arisu and Usagi, are trapped in a desolated Tokyo and forced to play deadly card-themed games to survive. They later find out that the world is a purgatory, a space between life and death, following a meteor strike that took place in real-life Tokyo. Now, what made me think of Alice in Borderland in the first place? This. Detail number 1. The hourglass. The hourglass with a timer countdown. As sand slips through the hourglass, so does the time you have left. The countdown of your life has already begun. This is the clear message of this symbol, and the VP really emphasizes it. In Alice in Borderland, the players have a visa, and in order for it not to expire, which would mean they would die executed by a laser, they are forced to participate in deadly games. In this series, time serves as the ultimate adversary. And Project Silent Whispers is most likely going the same way. A broken hourglass could represent a world where time has stopped, or where the rules of time have been shattered, forcing the characters to play games to reset it. But the hourglass isn't the only sign this world is already dead. The teaser even asks, this time, can you defy fate and shatter the loop? Not prevent or escape. Shatter. It feels as though these characters have already experienced this nightmare multiple times. Not only in regard to the idea that the inhabitants of that place have to play games in order to keep alive, but also that the place is not just something akin to a VR game, but instead a world between life and death, a purgatory of sorts. Let's go through the clues, shall we? Detail number 2 is the stagnant artificial environment. I am talking about the mirrored city, the reversed image of the city that we see on 2 occasions. Here, we even see what it looks like an eclipse or a black hole right in the middle of the inversed cities. And there's even a glitch to boot. If you also pay attention when these supposed races are taking place, we see destruction everywhere. Collapsed buildings, explosions, and the drivers racing without any care about safety. This brings us to detail number 3. The teaser confirms this illusion when it says,
"Welcome to your gilded cage. You came right back to me."
the gilded cage is beautiful, but still a prison. But the biggest clue of all is perhaps hidden in plain sight. It's the name of the city. Fading light. And that makes me think precisely of purgatory, a place where the light of life is fading. A place that looks alive on the surface, yet feels artificial, stagnant, and trapped outside the normal flow of reality. The official text mentions that plenty walk the line between reality and illusion. It's also implied that those who are in fading light don't share the same past, but answer the call of that place. So they got there because they tried to grab the last vestige of life when facing their last heartbeat, or because desire made them open a forbidden door to that place. This right here reinforces the idea that fading light is a purgatory where only souls who are on the edge between death and life, and those who enter through forbidden ways, well, in appearance, it's just like any other city with cafes, stations, and even a Ferris wheel. That is, apart from creeping vines and warped high rises, which are probably glitches in the fake construction that is the City of Fading Light. Just like in Alice in Borderland, there are rules to be followed. There are three main rules of the game. First one, when someone enters the city, their life is bound to the hourglass. When the last grain of sand slips down, their life reaches its end. The only way to acquire more sand, more time, is to continue playing the game. Another one of the rules states that if a player gets enough sand, they'll be able to return to the real world. The third rule is if a grain is earned at the brink of death, that will translate into riches in the real world if they actually manage to survive it. As we can see, the system of acquiring sand in order to keep living is just what happens with the visas in Alice in Borderland. You're buying more time of legal stay in the game by playing those deadly games. If you stop playing for some time, you're out of the purgatory world and lose your life. The only thing that actually differs is the third rule, and maybe that's why we see the characters risking their lives to the maximum.
The judgment begins now.
And this line in the PV just gains a whole other layer. Enjoy your time in the game, the next session is commencing. But the rules of the game are nothing compared to the roles the love interests are playing. And one of them might actually be the one who wrote the rules. So, time to meet the players and break down the info we have so that we can speculate about their possible roles. Because once again, they may play parts similar to what we see in Alice in Borderland. Players, the one who must join the games to extend their visas. Dealers, infiltrated players who help the game masters and make sure the players don't survive. And citizens, or game masters, who are players who have previously cleared all games and still chose to remain in the Borderlands, becoming permanent residents and being responsible for creating the games. And what's interesting and dangerous is that dealers and citizens are killed when players win the games. So not even the final bosses are immune. And why is that? Precisely because dying in real life and dying in the games go hand in hand. And I think at least one of the three love interests may have a different role if Silent Whispers decides to take a similar approach. Curious? Let's see what we can find out. First of all, who are they? We have Alarik, the Silas type one. Yes, there's no denying it. He is powerful and deems all living beings as being below him. He's alone, as if on a pedestal, the MC being his obsession. His cold words hiding a true heart. Now, the interesting part starts with this line. I've been betting against myself this whole time, betting that you really do have it in you to kill me again and again. This line clearly brings the concept of the looping structure of the story to the front, as well as to the fact there can only be one winner, and that has to be the MC. And the fact that Alarik mentions that means that he is very well aware of the true nature of the City of Fading Light. Wait, look at this. Detail number 4 is hidden right on Alarik's car, the license plate reading Fate Line, real 24/7. Could that imply that he was originally a servant of fate? Like a dealer in Alice in Borderland who decided to rebel against it? All the time, 24/7? And here I'm going to talk about another aspect of Silent Whispers. The transformations, which could be like the survival talents, their specific abilities that have allowed them to survive the games so far. Alarik specifically appears to turn into a phoenix, possibly representing the denial of time. He dies so that the MC doesn't have to. Unlike the others, he also doesn't sound confused by the repetition. He sounds angered by it, as if he has watched this cycle happen over and over again. And maybe that's why he's a phoenix and has fire deeply tied to his imagery. Fire in mythology is often tied to purification and rebirth. But Alaric's flames don't feel hopeful. They feel self destructive, almost as if every resurrection costs him something. Alaric may represent violent rebirth. A phoenix is a creature trapped in an endless cycles of death and resurrection, which makes him the perfect symbol for a world built around loops. And while Alaric represents the fire of a violent rebirth, our next lead, Valen, offers the complete opposite. The cold, frozen silence of a guardian who might be keeping a much darker secret. The crystal wielder might be the reluctant guardian, the one who didn't want to get involved but finds himself forced to protect the MC. The stoic protector trope makes me think of both Zane and Xavier in Love and Deep Space. Valen is someone whose purity remains untouched by fate. He also seems to be isolated in a place of ice and snow, waiting. He's actually the only ally that we don't see in the city. And this seems to suggest that he plays a different role compared to the other two, maybe akin to a master or a dealer of the games in Alice in Borderland. Which leads to detail number 5, the line about the script he carefully wove. The script he carefully wove is simply waiting for that one beam of light to fall on him. He wrote a script. Is this literal or poetic? Because this is just speculation, but here's the thing. If there is a script and a cage and repeated loops, then someone may be maintaining the system. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but we see butterflies on each side of the shirt, on his back. We know butterflies are a symbol of transformation, but in this case, if he is pure, the butterfly on his back could represent his unawakened soul. In Alice in Borderland terms, he could be the citizen who doesn't even realize he's in the game yet, the ultimate wild card. Or they could point to the fact that Valen is some sort of an angel, or even a god about to fall, because his introduction mentions that he is waiting to offer the purity hidden deep within him, along with his very self, to the one he sees as his true god. He is a pure being talking about gods and salvation, after all. And then we see him sitting on what looks like some sort of broken throne. It's somewhat of a paradox. Like, how can someone be pure and untouched while sitting on a throne in a place of death? This suggests he might be an accidental ruler or someone being preserved for dark purpose. And from what he says, it sounds like it was his own decision. And I think that his fall, because we do see him falling from a structure similar to a cathedral or a sanctuary high above, white feathers floating around, until he passes through some sort of library or digital archive and finally reaches the horizon between the two inverted cities. This fall was most likely his decision too. I'd risk to say it was his way of allowing himself to be tainted by fate in order to find and save the MC. What do you think? I'd also like to mention the fact that Valen wields ice may be significant. Ice is often used in fictional lore as a vessel for memory or data. He might be the one who remembers every failed run or every person lost in the games, which is why he has retreated into his shell. Or maybe he has been responsible for this world all along. And then comes detail number 6, the ice flower dissolving. And asks, "You don't remember me?" If the loops are real, then memory may be the true price of survival. Every reset could erase bonds, promises, and even love itself. After all, he does say, I can endure any darkness, but not a future without you. But not every survivor responds to the loops the same way. Alarik fights against fate, Valen seems to preserve it. And Theron? He may simply be trying to endure it. He's a werewolf. And guess what? He's also a bit of a recluse. Also, take a look at this. I can help but think of another werewolf who also apparently didn't own a shirt.
Doesn't he own a shirt?
Jacob Black! Anyway, Theron seems to live in a cabin amidst snowy mountains, and since we see him in chains, the seclusion is most likely a way of containing himself when he turns into a werewolf. Or, since he has more feral traits, as a way of silencing the voices in the world that don't belong to the one he's searching for, the anchor that reaches across time. Finally, detail number 7. The broken chains on the floor, implying a potential sacrifice so that the MC can survive the game. It may be a symbol of him staying behind so that the MC can proceed to the next game, for example. The fact that he's a werewolf also makes me think of the dichotomy between instinct and fate. His animalistic tendencies contradict the fate that was brought upon him, and the way he struggles against the chains is also a mirror to possibly his resistance to their destiny and his own transformation into a beast. Probably due to his animalistic instincts, we are also told he's exceptional at reading the smallest details in people: breath, footsteps, signals in their eyes and expression. And as a sort of a foil to Valen, Theron is a prisoner of fate. He also contrasts with Alarik because he doesn't seem to fully remember his past, and therefore he's always writing to remember what happened before. I wonder if he was one of those that entered the city of fading light not because he was on the edge of death, but because he defied the laws, the rules, and fate to do so. And his heightened senses could make him a sort of a tracker across timelines. Maybe that's why he entered the city of fading light. Or maybe that's merely the consequence of experiencing several loops in those games. What do you think? He lays his life at the disposal of the MC. From this moment on, my breathing is yours to control, which could point toward the fact that he will willingly become the MC's blade for her to win the game. Perhaps that's why we see him racing against Alarik, or at least that's what that scene looks like. So, if all these clues are connected, then Silent Whispers may not be just a romance set inside a game, but a purgatory where repeated games determine who earns the right to return to life. We are apparently set to have a new Otome game that will try to raise the stakes from the beginning, with a little flair of open world. I love theme parks and the like, so the idea that there is a little carnival sounds lovely. However, I truly hope the story won't disappoint because I honestly play games for their stories. Silent Whispers can open up a bunch of different paths. Will the love interests play different roles in each of the games? Do they actually have roles in terms of the creation and management of the City of Fading Light? And if in Love in Deep Space the MC and the allies have quieter moments to enjoy the development of their relationship, how will romance work in a place where they are constantly at risk of dying? In Silent Whispers, love could very well become a game mechanic for survival. Or, on the contrary, love may sacrifice itself so that one life can be saved. Instead of a multi-universe, multi-timeline plot like in Love in Deep Space, we'll probably have a plot that takes place in an upside-down, reversed, liminal space that slowly may reveal what happened or what is still taking place in the real world, or the world of the living. The characters could be caught between life and death in a loop. They're fighting to break the loop so that at least one of them can survive. And since we have this loop nature, I wonder if that will allow us to achieve different endings through replays. Or if not completely different endings, at least some sort of branching mechanic that affects what happens next. Now, that would be very interesting. This could very well change how Otome romance stories work, giving them a survival vibe. Love, memory, sacrifice, and survival may become intertwined inside the looping narrative, giving rise to identity and stability into a sort of race against the time feel. And maybe that's the true horror of Silent Whispers. Love isn't escaping the game, love may be the very thing keeping the players trapped inside it. Now, will I play it? I honestly don't know. As I've said before, the story is the most important aspect for me in pretty much every game. But from what they've shown and written, I can't deny it looks promising. And then there's the info that Hampton Fancher, the screenwriter of Blade Runner, helped to create the framework of its world. So I honestly don't know to what extent it sounds good in theory. Regardless, I think a little competition is always good so that games in general can improve and lead to a better experience for all players. So here's to that. But let me know, are you excited about Silent Whispers? Do you have any specific reservations about it? And what about the direction its story will take? Do you think we're onto something? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy Love in Deep Space, I've got a lot of videos about it. From explaining the lore of the main story and myths to deep dives into the mythology and astrology of the five love interests. Check out these links if you're curious. Also, if you enjoyed this video, let me know. It's been very hard to get my videos shown to the right audience, so every like helps. This is Princess Farron signing out. Take care and good gaming!